Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we're going to find out what kind of reader I am. So, a buddy of mine, Kurt, sent over to a Discord that I'm on, a video game Discord that has a books channel. There was like a big discussion about this new reading assessment thing, which is called Read Your Colour. And I am running out of ideas for videos, so I thought, why not do the reading assessment live with you guys? And by live, I mean recorded, and then talk about the books that it recommends and kind of talk you through the process of doing this specific assessment. So I'm going to kind of run through. So I don't know anything about Read Your Colour apart from that a couple of friends said that it worked for them and a couple of friends said it didn't. So basically the idea of Read Your Colour is to try and like give you like a quiz and then suggest you like a specific reading plan and to give you some books that you should read. What I'm going to tell you guys is obviously I know what kind of books that I like because I like fantasy books and sometimes like sci-fi books, and that's kind of the entire purpose of this YouTube channel. But let's see if Read Your Colour can get that right. I'm obviously not going to give them any money, but let's have a look. So, am I ready to find my reader type? Yes. This quiz will show you 24 different hypothetical book summaries, indicate how likely you would be to read each one. Okay, cool. Okay, a poetic memoir weaves together fragments, dreams, journal entries, old texts, chronicling the author's healing after grief. So, obviously, you know, my genre of choice for this YouTube channel is fantasy, but pre being a YouTuber, I did read a little bit more diversely, and some of my favourite books are actually just standard fiction. My favourite book of all time is probably a toss-up between a few fiction books, weirdly not fantasy books. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon and The Good Father by Noah Hawley are two books that had a really profound impact on me as a person. So I actually see the term poetic is not really doing it for me, and I'm not a big memoir person. I have read a few memoirs, and I have, but mostly via audio. And I have read, this is a weird one, but I've read the book that the movie Seabiscuit was based on. Really loved it, which is kind of a memoir about a horse. Or like, it's more of a biography, I guess. It's not written by the horse. I'm going to say, but probably not read, because poetic memoir does not really give me vibes. Oh, yes, click next. A woman falls in love with a man through anonymous letters exchanged in library books, never meeting until fate intervenes. I'm going to say would probably not read here as well. I've nothing against romance specifically, but I do feel like this particular setup isn't really something that I would reach out for. Let's move on. Okay, in a city run by corporations, a lone data hacker risks everything to uncover the truth behind a mass digital blackout. Would definitely read this. Sounds great. Obviously, you guys know that I am. I do read some sci-fi. I do primarily read fantasy. Most of the sci-fi that I read also is kind of sci-fantasy almost. So like Dune and Sun Eater. Red Rising is less fantasy, it's more sci-fi, but it isn't like hard sci-fi. I haven't actually read any cyberpunk stuff. I feel like that's something that I kind of really need to get onto, because I like cyberpunk stories, so maybe I should read some cyberpunk fiction. But yeah, I would definitely read this based on this pitch. In a shattered world ruled by elemental warlords, a cursed warrior and an outcast prince form a forbidden bond that could remake the realm. I mean, this is very much my thing. 100% I would read this. Don't even need to tell you. This sounds like a great story. And just note this down, steal it, and write this book. A solitary monk walks across America, encountering strangers who subtly reshape his inner life and beliefs. This again, this is a would definitely read. I wouldn't read this for the channel probably because, like, I try to stay on topic. But this might be something that I would secretly read on the sly. I haven't actually done that during my time having this channel, and I have read some like crime thrillers and horror books. But I haven't read just a general fiction. But yes, I would definitely read this. Drawing on neuroscience and ancient philosophy, this guide helps overthinkers. No, would definitely not read. I don't care about self-help. I weirdly against self-help, and I think it's because I have been exposed to via previous workplace stuff to several self-help books that I felt were incredibly obvious in terms of like, this is how, like management style stuff. And I feel like I think a lot of these books are just not for me and my specific personality type. So we'll move straight on. I'm not going to read this. A surrealist artist discovers their paintings are portals to the real world, and something is starting to come back through the canvas. Sounds great. This could either be a portal fantasy, urban fantasy, or just a straight horror. It kind of feels like it leans horror, and I would definitely read this. This sounds super fun. A grumpy CEO starts to rethink what's important to him after he falls in love with the new VP of marketing. I'm going to say would definitely not read. I'm not opposed, again, to reading a story where the romance is the primary storytelling hook. But I feel like, for me, it needs to be a bit more interesting. Like, maybe it's a queer romance, or it's a fantasy romance, or it is, not just like a generic romance. An ex-assassin hiding in Alaska must confront his past when his daughter is taken by a vengeful arms dealer. I would probably read this. I'm less drawn to this sort of thriller than I think books like I'm probably going to say probably. This kind of feels like a Taken, kind of a Jack Reacher style story. And I do sometimes feel like maybe those stories are better told in video, so like in films and TV. Like Taken is awesome, Jack Reacher is awesome. I'm interested in reading more thrillers, but currently no plans to do that. No plans to read any thrillers, Let's move swiftly on. A chef journeys across post-Soviet Europe searching for the recipes that defined her grandmother's lost homeland. I'm going to click might read on this one. As somebody who has a semi-restricted diet, in that like I'm a vegetarian, have been for 30 years, and I also try to limit animal products as much as possible, mostly because my son is allergic to all of them. So he's allergic to dairy, eggs, all that sort of jazz. So he's essentially vegan, and by extension my wife and I tend to, like when I cook, because I want to cook a meal that the whole family can eat, it tends to be a vegan meal. So most cooking related content is not really for me, because unless it's a specifically vegan thing, I'm probably not going to take anything from it. I'm going to put might read though, because I am interested in stuff like post-Soviet Europe is kind of interesting, and like the kind of going back and looking at like personal history I find interesting. A multi-generational novel told from the perspective of a single house and the people who have lived, loved and died within it. This is interesting. I'm going to put might on this one as well. So, I've said it before, but like primarily a fantasy reader. And if this was a fantasy story of like multiple generations of like wizards or something in a house, I'd be clicking, would definitely read. I'd have to hear fantastic reviews from this for me to prioritise it ahead of something that was more within my favourite genres. A deep dive into how food systems, global trade and local economies shape the way we eat and how to eat better. I'd probably read this. When I'm saying as well, so like for this one and a couple of other books I've said, like I would probably read this. In those cases, when they're not fantasy books or sci-fi books, I'm saying I'd probably read this, and I'm thinking about like if I ever, give up doing YouTube, or like if I decide to take a break or whatever, because really I want to read stuff that fits the genre, but also is something that you as an audience will enjoy hearing me talk about. So that's kind of why I tend to stay within the genre, even though I've had friends who are like, don't you want to read a non-fantasy book? And I'm like, yeah, I do, but I also, there's thousands of fantasy books that I will not have the time to read in my life that I want to read. So why not just read books that fit the channel? I'm not specifically going like I really want to read this book, but I can't. Like I am choosing my preference, which is to read in my genre. Long way around to talking about that. Linguist and an ex-CIA operative must decode an ancient manuscript for a secret science that reshapes history. Ooh, that sounds really good. So this one kind of got like a Da Vinci Code vibe, and while I don't have much interest in the Da Vinci Code, I would probably read this if it had decent reviews. A novel told entirely through footnotes and deleted Wikipedia entries reconstructs the life of a time traveller who never existed. Would definitely read. This is exactly my kind of jam. If I'm looking for something that is a bit more than just your standard sci-fi or fantasy, so if I'm looking for something that's a bit weird and a bit interesting, I have the book S by J.J. Abrams and Simon something, and they did this thing where it's like there's like footnotes in the page, and there's like stuff stuffed in the book and things like that, and I would love to actually read that and discuss it on the channel someday, but for the time being I haven't done it yet. I started that book like 4 times. A struggling screenwriter falls for the nanny of his ex-wife's kids in a story filled with awkward chai and bad coffee and unexpected kisses. Would definitely not read. I like the struggling screenwriter aspect, but as I said before, like romance just isn't really my jam. Future where dreams can be uploaded and bought and woman begins to lose the line between memory and product. Would definitely read. This sounds interesting. I like the ideas of like I like futurism in storytelling, and kind of the idea of like memories and dreams as being transferable is something that I do actually really like, and I've seen in a few books before, and I've always been interested in. Kind of cyberpunky, I guess. This is the former Silicon Valley exec shares what broke him, what healed him, and how to live a more intentional digital life. Would definitely not read, because I will tell you what that is. That's a self-help book disguised as a memoir. A rescue team in Antarctica picks up a distress signal for a base that officially doesn't exist and never did. Ooh, that sounds great. I do love a little bit of a conspiracy. I like the kind of stories that are like a regular person is interacting with something out of the ordinary. So yeah, I'd be into this. A cultural critic's essay collection on the end of privacy, the aesthetics of apocalypse, and what comes after capitalism. I like a lot of these ideas, but I'm never going to read an essay collection. Like, I'm just not going to. Like, with all the best will in the world, I have bought and borrowed essay collections before on topics that I have been genuinely super interested in, and they do not hold my attention. I'd rather watch documentary. So would definitely not read. Although I don't know whether I've just sent a signal to the reading assessment people that don't care about that sort of content, but I don't want that in books anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like essay style content, I'm just not that interested in. A woman uncovers a box of unsent letters and begins to rewrite the story of her childhood. I'm going to say would probably not read. This one isn't as strong a vibe as some of the others, but the idea of like unsent letters is kind of appealing. So maybe if it had great reviews and like my mum read it and was like, "Oh, you should read this book," because she's a big reader, my mother, but she doesn't read genre fiction like I do. A clear notes manual on how to lead teams would definitely not read. I don't even need to read the whole thing. Self-help book, I'm not going to read it. Maybe I'll expand one day on my hatred of self-help books. An ornithologist joins a rogue expedition into the Congo to find a supposedly extinct bird. Then the team starts vanishing one by one. Yeah, I'd probably read this. Kind of a horror-y, adventure-y sort of story. Weirdly, I cannot hack horror movies at all. Like, even the mildest of horror movies that you could basically call like a thriller that's a bit spooky, I like cannot watch. I spend the entire time obsessing over it being too scary for me, and then when something scary happens, it absolutely wrecks me, and I just cannot carry on watching. There's a ton of horror films that I love the idea of, and a ton of horror films that I've wanted to watch. I forced myself through like 2 or 3 horror films in my life, and I really liked all of them, but I hated the experience of watching them. But this sounds pretty interesting. I'd probably read that. In an alternate 1800s, a woman disguises herself as a man to join a pirate crew in search of a mythical island said to grant second life. I'd probably read that. I'm not a huge period or like alternate history guy. I do tend to prefer secondary world stories. But if this had good reviews and I had good recommendations, I'd probably give it a shot. Final question. This is the last one. A box of mementos hidden by her late husband sends a young widow on a cross-country road trip through memory and mourning. Now, this might surprise you, but I'm going to click would probably read on this one. This really strongly reminded me of one of my favourite fiction books, which is The Good Father by Noah Hawley, where the concept of The Good Father is a guy who has remarried and has 2 children with his new wife, but had a son with his ex-wife, and one day he finds out that his son has killed the front runner in the next presidential election. So the person who is likely to be voted as president, he's killed this guy who's like beloved and well liked. You know, like I think they're kind of like a Bobby Kennedy stand-in, and so he's killed this guy, and then the dad finds out that he did this at the end of like a road trip across America, and he decides to follow the same journey and try and meet the people that he met and see if he can learn what's going on with his son and why he did it, and try and understand it before his son is executed for murder. Really, really strong story, really moving. I read it as my wife and I were taking our first steps into deciding we wanted to be parents, and it was a really interesting story to read at that particular juncture in my life. And as also a child of divorce, it was something that felt very personal story, and because, you know, I might not read this book in and of itself, but because of my love for The Good Father, it would probably make me interested in reading this book. So yeah, would probably read. Let's find out what my colour is. Okay. So I'm a primarily red reader, it looks like, but also a purple reader, basically, and almost a green reader. So let's explore my specific type, and then what I think we'll do is we'll go through the others. So what's a red reader? I'm a passionate adventurer. I'll be honest with you, that does sound like my reading taste, but not my personal life. So what is a red reader? Don't just read stories, you live them. You crave intensity, high stakes, and stories that grip you from the first page to the last. Red readers are fearless, bold, and driven by a relentless desire for adventure and raw emotion. So let's have a look. And in fact, so yeah, Project Hail Mary, love that book. I have heard of The Devil in the White City, and I feel like I might check that one out at some point. Yeah, personal narratives, stories of perseverance, thrillers that keep you on the edge of your seat, action-packed adventures, emotionally charged stories of resilience and survival, dramatic romances that break your heart and build it back up, not so much. Yeah, and then books I would probably like, Dark Matter, loved it. Killers of the Flower Moon, I enjoyed the movie in some respects, but yeah, I had some thoughts about some of the characters that I didn't particularly like. Harlan Coben should probably read one of his books because my wife loves his Netflix TV shows. Yeah, Dark Matter. I read this before starting the channel, but loved it. If this is recommended by Stephen King, I'll read that. And Woman in the Cabin. Don't know that one at all. The Wager, I know Ross of Harley's Books fame absolutely loves. Owen, the same dude, absolutely loves The Wager, and also everybody kind of loves The Wager. I'll be honest with you guys, like it's incredibly popular. So yeah, I'm interested in that. So of this list, I have read this, watched the film of this, and these three in the middle I'm genuinely interested in, and if I knew what this was I'd probably be interested too. What I want to do though is let's have a look at the other my other one was purple, wasn't it? That was like the next closest. That was like 75. Unbound Innovator. The purple reader is the Unbound. I mean, this is literally me. I've shaved off my beard because it's starting to get warm in the UK and I tend to have no facial hair when it's warm. But, basically me. Although he's got hair on his head, that's not how I live my life anymore. Purple Reader is an Unbound Innovator, a bold, unconventional thinker who thrives on experimental storytelling and genre-defying narratives. They read to challenge norms, stretch their imagination, fuel radical creativity. Finishing with, they want to feel intellectually awakened and creatively invigorated as if they've glimpsed a new way of seeing the world. I don't know if I do actually feel that way. I mean, I do love The Road. I really loved that book. But I feel like the way in which it was experimental was my least favourite part of it. Let's have a look at these ones. Left Hand of Darkness I want to read, and I would also like to read Slaughterhouse-Fives, and I should read all four of these books. I could be into this. Yeah. This does not feel like me specifically. Let's have a look at the Orange Reader. I was almost an Orange Reader. The Orange Reader thrives on masterful world building. I mean, I can see why I was pulled for this one. I feel like the majority of the questions here didn't lean into this. So I feel like if you're someone who's kind of open to reading lots of different books, you are going to get like more of a theme than a specific kind of book to go into. But I would say that looking at this, I'm probably more of an Orange Reader than... I do really strongly enjoy books that are fast-paced and have that sense of adventure. So I guess it makes sense. And I've read half of these four books, and I think both these books are very good. And Shogun I'm going to read this year when the Broken Binding edition comes out. I'm definitely buying that bad boy. Lonesome Dove I want to read. I have read Neil Gaiman's American Gods, and I thought it was very good. And I have read Name of the Wind, and I thought it was very good. And Lost City of Z is another David Grann. I feel like David Grann owns this Read Your Colour. So yeah, those three as my number, like my top three, does feel pretty accurate to me, to be honest. If you've taken this test, drop down in the comments below. So I'll drop a link in the comments. It will be like the top comment or in the description. Maybe I'll do both. That'll be like, what's your colour? Take the link and tell me what you got and whether you think it's accurate and how many David Grann books you were told you should read. So thanks so much for watching today, guys. While you're on your way down to drop that comment, please like this video and let me know that you liked it, and to let YouTube know, which is way more important. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, to join this lovely fantasy reading community. Thanks so much for watching, and I will speak to you soon.